Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another week and another great episode lined up for you for Cloud Foundry Weekly. I think episode 88, if I remember correctly. But jumping right into it, um, we got Darin, friend of the pod,
Yes, sir.
DMZ. Y'all know him, friend of the pod. And it's been time. We've been we're definitely overdue for this episode about talking about all this new security stuff that's happening in the news. And we could bring in our resident security expert here to help us to help talk me off a cliff from everything I read on Twitter every day about every new security incident that I should be concerned about. So I'm gonna lead with that. And there's this thing called Claude Mythos, and even ChatGPT released a security related variant of their models as well. So talking about how AI is driving security response, things like that. That's going to be the I think the tagline of the show. Darin, DMZ. Before we get into business, any fun banter, anything fun happening in your neck of the woods?
It's been a
Today.
busy couple of weeks, but honestly, I
Yeah.
mean, it's it's exciting times. David and I were talking about before we jumped on. David's shopping for a new computer.
The joys of new hardware. I knew memory was up, and I was prepared for that, but I wasn't prepared for what I'd like to buy versus what I need to buy. So I'm be a bit more pragmatic and take my time. Um, but I will be getting a new computer soon. Yeah, because I am doing a lot of remote agents. I need to have my desktop back at the house with enough power to do what I want to do.
Quick. Am I echoing? I had to flip over to
No,
my MacBook speakers.
No,
no,
you
you're
sound
fine.
Okay, yeah, my AirPods died right after I kicked off, so I lost you guys for a second.
fine.
But hey,
We
keep on
don't
bantering.
need to have all these security things. Things just die anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the audio woes just continue to plague us. Yesterday it was video, today it's audio. So yeah.
Yeah, this episode was supposed to happen yesterday, and we had to reschedule due to technical difficulties. So if anyone was waiting in the live stream yesterday, I apologize, but now we're here.
Yep.
although we can't blame the model that shall not be named. And it was not the reason for the problems yesterday. So
No, just skill issue, I guess. Networking and skill issue.
but
Uh,
actually, you brought up something that we're probably not going to spend much time talking about, but there's an interesting side community of uh, dark web models. So everyone's talking about like the Mythos and all the new ones, like, oh wow, I can find vulnerabilities. But there's actually models people are building that are actually taking attack frameworks and building attack-based models,
mhm.
which we're not even. We can have a whole episode talking about that one because that's an interesting one, and that's where we start going. Well, how do we expend what we do, what our partners do, and how do we get in the runtime of what's happening? Is it valid? So, um, I have a coworker I've been trying. I'll get her to come join us one of these next times. She's joined before V, and I think that'd be an interesting conversation of what are we doing in Tanzu itself. Since we run applications and we have platforms that run applications, we have an interesting perspective of what happens in and around those applications. And I think that we don't need to be a security company to be able to surface that telemetry data of what's happening. And if there are known patterns, we can say, hey, this looks whatever, and help teams figure out where to look. Because the problem we're running into is there's just too much data. There's too much going on. It was already too much data. If you're a large enterprise, if you have anywhere in excess of 100,000 containers running, the amount of log data you have, we couldn't do it before. Everyone had SIMs. They're doing their Splunk logs. They're paying their millions of dollars in licenses to capture logs.
Mhm.
But is it really capturing anything? Yes, it finds stuff. But I think this is going to be an interesting year of really analyzing mass data for real security stuff. I think that's going to be an interesting conversation. But we can actually skip back and look at the the last week of how is development changing around
Mhm.
some of the ways that models look at things. And while I can't talk about if not Broadcom is involved in any of the things that's in the news, I'll leave that to the marketing people who have authorization to talk about things. I will say it's nothing unexpected. We didn't know. We knew things were coming. Look at VI, the Vim project, and all the 0 days they're getting reported. They had to actually turn off their bug bounty program. They're getting so many vulnerabilities submitted by AI, they couldn't keep up. So how do they validate? Not only do you get a report coming in, we still have to validate: is it real? Is it
Mhm.
actually impacting on the code? Are they actually injecting malicious code to me? because you're attacking supply chains or attacks. So you can't just have AI go, hey, I'm just going to take all these PRs people are submitting and then make it happen. You've got to figure out how do you actually work with that. And that we were saying before the show that's I am so proud of the team I work with. It's amazing, every level of the organization. The idea that, and this is where Broadcom doesn't quite get it. You know, they're a hardware company. They don't quite see this. And this is when I joined Pivotal, I saw the teams, and it's like, wow, this is engineering to a completely different level. And we were doing automation to a level of like, if there was a USN for our canonical builds, it would create a brand new stem cell, release it, and automatically do upgrades. That was done years ago. So that auto bumping was part of it. But imagine you're in the middle of like your annual long-term release across hundreds of products, many release lines, and all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of security things to talk about. How does that change what you do? Do you say, hey, let's wait a month and get a release out so it has all these things? No, you can't do that. You have to release. And I think we're releasing yesterday. So yeah, it didn't slow us down. People definitely had to step up. There was a lot of people working extra hours, but having an organization that can respond at scale requires the building blocks of automation. It requires an app platform with opinionation, so you don't have to, it's easy to upgrade. It's easy to receive those things. And it requires a process that's a highly efficient organization. We've been saying in Tanzu for years, do you do 1 or 2 releases a week, or does it take you a couple of months to get, the waterfall at the door, or are you an organization that can do 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 builds a week? Right. And we're doing 1,000 builds a week already. That's so if we need to bump it up by 500, that's just a couple more builds. You get to a point where you're limited by how fast your disks can spin. Nick, you had a power issue yesterday.
Yeah.
How fast can you boot things? How much power does it take to get those disks spinning up? Even with in-memory disks, it's still, we're going as fast as the electronics can go. We're bounded by physics, which is kind of cool to think that you're in the tech community. We actually get to a point where, power, thermodynamics, heat, airflow, and the actual fact that the heat itself changes the speed that things move and store things. Have you ever taken a magnet and put it under heat? What does it do? So physics is kind of cool. It's coming into our world a lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess. I did. Kuhn Labs did a power incident yesterday, so it was a lot of running around trying to get things back online. But I'll take a hit on my 9s of availability for sure. But fun times for sure as things. And ironically enough, I caused the incident by pushing too many things to some of my large language models in terms of talking about pushing everything to its max. So surprise. Once you trip a circuit or two, and then you have a bunch of UPSs all trigger at once. I didn't get there in time.
How many organizations do you think are running that close to like capacity? They don't have that buffer that everyone knows they need it, but traditionally we've not had that spike. And it's not just CPU or power or consumption, which those definitely are downstream impacts. But I think Darin, I've been talking about this, that the idea that in the past we had 10% of our developer, say you're 100,000 organization, you got 10,000 developers. That's where you're at, and your capacity for your CPU and your platform for running it has a certain size. Now all of a sudden you have a different flip. Now have 80% of your staff that can make a program. Right. And how do you help protect that and secure it? Well, you provide guardrails in that platform and tools for saying, hey, just take your code and tell it to go push over here. And you don't have to worry about it. It'll maintain it. It'll upgrade the back end. All those things happen. But now you have, instead of 10,000 apps, you've got 80,000 apps. Yep. And all those statistical models you've done for your CPU load, and they all want to hit that LLM, which means they're going to have more memory there, more power, more heat. And how many of those environments are going to hit capacity? Even the cloud has a limit.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, and it's interesting too. I mean, and to kind of take us back a little bit to some of the news over the course of the last few weeks, like, I think in the era of AI, like I think we all knew the day was coming where AI would be at the point where it's like it's looking at our source code and it's like, okay, well that's not really new. But then you have this idea of like agents, now being able to go in and actually take that a step further. Agents acting as a persona and taking it and just going deeper into it and figuring out, okay, well, if I have multiple CVEs, that are stacked, well, now do I have the ability to actually expose a different vulnerability that may not have been there or may not be flagged as, the same severity if it was, just a low, criticality. and then all of a sudden, if you stack a few of them together, well, is this something now that's a higher priority, and is it something now that we need to look at differently? And I think it poses this new conversation, David, specifically around just how we think about security in the era of AI, and obviously from a Tanzu perspective, we've had a lot of really cool, announcements over the course of the last week, and then, a GA that happened this week, which is really exciting. And we're going to talk more about that later, too. And we've got some episodes, I think, coming up, Nick, where we're going to dive deeper into, all the things that are new with Tanzu platform. But David, I want to kind of throw that question back at you. Like, in this era where all of this is evolving so rapidly, now we're seeing the security story become front and center, because now all of a sudden it's like, hey, we have models that have the ability to actually go and start to piece all of this together. It's not just about looking at source code anymore.
No, it's I think the biggest thing is it's the idea you can have these massive context models. In the past, you would like, and this is actually, we can look at, enterprises looking at security. Like, oh, I can install an agent that says, hey, I'm going to limit and protect one little app that you might have running. But what happens when that app has 50 microservices and runs between a cluster of 100 machines? The model for how that runs is a different model. And to be able to have an AI which can load the entire context of not just a microservice, but 50 microservices, and the relationships of those, the data flows of those, and then each one might have different risks based upon known vulnerabilities. That's an interesting conversation we can come back to, is the ability to chain multiple known vulnerabilities into a bigger vulnerability. That's something we talked about in security for a long time, but now it's easy to prove. And then separately, since it has access to the Git repos, not only does it have the context of a running environment, but actually you can go to the Git repo for all those microservices and like look through the code and go, oh, I just found something here that can exploit because it's running this way. So it's taking that and really doing a significant change how you approach it. In fact, so much so, we do annual pen tests across all of our products. It's just one of the things we've done. Is you have to make sure you can answer to customers. We are doing things to proactively do security. After seeing some of the way these new modern tools are working, as we started our pen test this year, the first question we asked the team was, so are you using AI as part of your pen test? And it's like, no, we're here's our methodology, our procedure. And it's like, you're not going to find anything. Honestly, we've had pen tests on Tanzu platform for decades, and they do find, it's like, oh, we found this cross-site scripting that wasn't done, this one thing, but generally it's nothing significantly has been found. There have been over the years findings by ours or other customer red teams, because our customers have some smart red teams, and they found things. There've been some novel things they found, but to say it's 5 or 10 a year is a big stretch, but that's still significant. That's a lot of things. That's pretty average. What happens when you're finding 5 or 10 a month? Because you now have this visibility of looking at things. The whole security industry is significantly changing. All the tooling, if you look at the publicly traded market for security companies, it's just bottomed out, because it's different. You can't just say, hey, we're going to do an SBOM inventory. We have that. I mean, we gave that to our customers. We said we shouldn't even be bothered with like the idea that we're going to spend weeks of time doing inventories, SBOMs, and like doing scanning. We've already got that. Why should you spend your weeks doing that? We're just going to, if you run our platform, if you build apps on it, here's the data. We've already done that work for you. Now let's go to the next step. Let's take the stuff that should be the easiest thing, which is the hardest. Make an inventory, make a relationship model. How is it all tied together? And what's the known vulnerability state across it? We just say, here it is. Go look at that. Because realistically, we want to get to is that next step where not just the AI, but those real pen testers, the people a pen testing team that does use AI, someone who can say, okay, let's look at, and this is where our customers are really cool. I've had some really interesting conversations with our customer red teams, where they're like they actually would deploy apps to the foundation with the intent of 100% trying to exploit that container. They want to know, do I need to put a third-party tool into, which we have integrations, Qualys and CrowdStrike and all the tools you can put on the platform, and it does the security stuff for you. But those aren't cheap. If you're looking at, $500,000 or $1 million a year just for a license, and then you're like, well, what's it going to do? Well, it's going to capture the fact if any container gets escaped. So you have a red team that does a really in-depth analysis, and then we can partner with them and we can do the red team in with our code and actually layer that story together. And if you can't break out of a container, would you want to spend $1 million on a license, or hire 3 new engineers to do more for your business, or get an engineer and 2 engineers with the licenses for tokens? The ideas change of where are the risks? And there are tools that are great. I would definitely not discount runtime tools and things that are looking for things, but they don't have context necessarily of the platform and the controls that are inherent in the platform. And that's the balance we're working on of how those have changed. And I am having the time of my life with this. This is I could everyone's like, oh, it's a good time to be in security. I've been saying, well, 30 years now. It's been a good time to be in security forever. But now it is I can, if I'm looking at an idea of a pen test, I not only can just have this concept of what it could look like, but now I have a team of agents that can go do it for me. I couldn't in the past do a pen test and then, hey, I want to go through the Git repo and see what I can find for vulnerabilities there, then take that and apply it to a model of attacking. I couldn't do that. I mean, it's just more work than one person can do. And when you're looking at millions of lines of code, there's no way you can find stuff. Even with scanners, it's not going to find really. They'll find some, but not really. Especially if you've been doing it for a long time, you'll find little things, but not a lot.
Yeah.
But when you have an AI tool and you can say, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. Go look at all these repos and see if I can use that to leverage. It's amazing. It just. But that means we have to have that table stake default secure stuff that has to be done. You have to have automation. You've got to have pipelines. You got to have opinions. Otherwise, it's going to be unmanageable and uncontrollable.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot too of general podcasts of like, hey guys, like you guys just need to like patch your stuff now. Like Pandora's box has been opened. Yeah, there's been like my Twitter feed is just like, oh, so and so got breached today, and I was like, oh, this is not good.
Well, that's the other hard part of it is
yeah.
we can't just say patch because we've seen significant supply chain attacks.
Yes.
From Trivy to NPM to Python, every language has a supply chain attack. So how do we, we intend to approach things as a patch first mechanism. We don't, if we have 1,000 vulnerabilities, we don't spend a week triaging and saying, oh, well, these things have patches, and like we just say if there's a patch available, we patch it. Now that introduces the concern of, well, where'd that patch come from? Who did it? If you're getting stuff from open source, which we all are, did someone commit that code from North Korea? Did someone, who was the committer? What was committed? Is the committed code actually code for it, or was it stuff like the XZ attack on SSH, a backdoor being put in there for future attacks? So. Not only do you have to consume it, and this is where actually I've had some great conversations with Will over at the catalog, Bitnami team. How do we actually look at that supply chain? And we're going to start doing that, a bit more in other places. But how do you look at, if I'm going to consume an update, and this is why it's great looking at the Bitnami team, because they're building everything from source. So if there's a new version of MySQL, they're not grabbing the MySQL binary and throwing it on a container. They're getting the MySQL source code. They're actually building it and then bundling those pieces together. So they actually full source build across all of it with salsa attestations. It's a great model. But one thing you talked about is how do you, if you're gonna have an update, what can I do to attest where that came from? What can I do to actually make that data better? Who committed it? What region are they from? Are they part of the project? Have they only been part of the project for 2 months? The metadata of what that code is, and that's we're gonna have that added because the supply is not just you have a vulnerability, we got to patch it. Where you're getting the stuff from, you might have a vulnerability because that was intentional. That was laid the ground 2 years ago, so that when you do this upgrade now, you're installing a backdoor. So. I actually built a rule in my own personal projects that said every release I do, it's in Go, do the GoSec stuff, see if there's any dependencies, but I have a rule on it. If there's any dependencies that are less than 72 hours old, unless they are specifically a CVE fix, ignore them. Give it 72 hours so I can see if the news says, hey, this repo was hit. So I'm intentionally having a delay on my supply chain to look for things that are caught, unless I say, just go do it. I know this is an exploit. I know this is a problem. Fix it type of thing. I've had to have that buffer because we've been hit in the supply chain too many times. I need to have a patch first, but I need to have some sort of way of buffering. And until I build tools to check upstream, I'm having a time buffer. And then I watch Twitter and the news where hopefully things will come up.
So we really need to distill DMZ's Claude skills for everyone's projects.
Well, that's where Kote, you should listen to Kote and talk, about my little side project. I've got an agent that will do ephemeral-based recursive agent builds, and it follows similar to build packs, where it actually says, "Oh, I'm going to do an open code or Claude code. I'm going to build, take the container and run it, but then attach Java or attach Ruby or whatever the language is, and then it'll pull the Git clone down. Actually, it starts even further. It's like you can. I borrowed from other people, so Nightwing and Dave Kennedy and all the people who have cool projects. I'm like, hey, Chris, Claude, hey, I like that project. see what's useful for me and like integrate it. So I'm totally into that.
Oh yeah.
But you can actually, I made an Android app and a watch app for it now too. So I can actually speak to it. It'll take my text, use the LM to convert that into a PRD, which I can approve. Once the PRD is approved, it'll break it up into sprints and fire off ephemeral agents to then go work on those pieces of the sprints. And then when they're done, they'll talk through memory to other agents saying, did you follow the rules? Did you do this test? And then it'll submit issues back to that agent to fix them. And I can do it recursively, inline, parallel, and it's meant to be this multi-agent processing behemoth. Written by a hacker, so it has some cool tools. Like you can actually connect to it through Signal, or you can connect to it through a DNS back channel. So if you want to use a DNS server to do covert channel, things that you didn't have to do, but I thought it was fun, so I added it to it. So
nice. I'll have to. Is this a private or public?
It's totally public. It's
Okay.
called Data Watch. It's based upon one of my favorite books. From Daniel Keys Moran from back in the 80s about a hacker, and I'll share it in our chat here so you can share it in the notes. But being as I'm also a big fan of every audit I ever did, I was always angry there's no data diagrams, there's no data flow diagrams. So part of my rules are you can't do a commit if you're doing a release without updating all the documentation, the architecture diagrams, the data flow diagrams, the connections. So it has extensive documentation. Like, full on, if you want to know how the proxy works, or how it actually communicates the channels, or how it can do all that's diagrams. It's spend time in the docs folder. And I give attribution back to teams that, if I borrow things, I give that total attribution of what I borrowed, which project, which functions I got from them, how I enhanced it, the differences of what I'm doing, what they're doing. This is one of those things that I've learned the limits of what Cloud can do unless I throw more money at it. And I'm willing to live within those limits. So $100 a month is great for me. It just keeps me a side project status. If I want to do more than side project, I need more money. But
all right, yeah. Then shout out to Keith here. I'm seeing you in chat. Do you have a honeypot in this environment?
Everywhere. So first and foremost, I have Ubiquity in my home network, and if you are using Ubiquity as a cloud gateway, it fully includes honeypot as well as Socrata IDS. You don't have to pay for the license. You can just turn on the open source side of it, and then there are community rules you can feed into it. So you don't have to pay Ubiquity a monthly fee for it. You can, and you get the commercial rules. There's more you can do with it. That's out of the box. Every network, every subnet I have, because naturally I have many subnets in my network. Nicky, we can probably have a great conversation about, do you have flat networks, multi-networks, DM, all the different stuff. Yes, I have all those. And I'm a big fan of honeypots. In fact, the honeypot project and teams have been good friends of mine for many decades. And you get some good data out of it, but I don't have them publicly anymore. What I'm looking for are things happening in my network. So if I see something connecting on port 22 and it's not me, I'm investigating. If I, so I'm the only person actually, I'm probably the only person I know within my entire neighborhood who does Linux stuff. I live in the deep South, so there are not a lot of tech people. So if I see there's activities, like if it sees anything hit the honeypot port, pretty much it's being investigated. In fact, one of the best things I like doing is you can leave a honeypot, or you can actually leave a file out there with what looks like a key to something, and then you just look for that key being used. Although if you're at a point where that key is being identified, there's actually a whole series of it's like a honeypot, but for tracking IDs. If you see the ID being used, it means you are rooted and someone has access to possible keys. You have a bigger issue to worry about. But at least it's a way of capturing. So honeypots are just one tool for that. But yeah, they're everywhere. In fact, I'll even say in your code you could put honeypots. I have one of my side projects. I did two things on it, which was kind of fun. I put a div that was hidden in the code, and I said in there, and I also put into a robots file. So robots should ignore this, but they never followed the robots file, and said, if you hit this following URL, I will block you. And I had built in the code that if they hit that route, it would actually block their IP address.
Oh.
So if the robot doesn't follow the robots file and it hits that link, the robot's blocked. If someone actually finds that URL, they're scanning, it's very clear. This is a blocking URL. If you hit it, if you read what it said, you would know. And then the other side I do is every code I write, I'm a strong proponent of input validation. You should always validate your input and output, making sure what you're getting is what you're supposed to get. And that is the best control you can have for anyone attacking an application, because before anyone attacks an application, they're going to fuzz it. They're going to scan that application. They're going to say, I'm going to put 4,000 variables. I'm going to hit them really hard and see which one breaks. But if you have input validation, you now have an alert going, hey, normally someone like enters a wrong form. You get one or two things, maybe an hour, or someone has an input validation. I now see a spike of 10,000 input validation errors. That's something happening I want to block. So honeypots are a way of capturing those events that can happen but shouldn't be, so you can then act upon them. And that's a great spot. I would love to actually tie into Brian Kirkland's little project of things and tie in maybe some stuff he's working on for alerting. Imagine having these honeypots that trigger extra things happening. So I've had a lot of fun trying to tie in integrated logging to various tools. So actually that we can, I don't have it in Cloud Foundry yet. I have a bunch of interesting Kubernetes ways of approaching application activities, logging, and then using off-the-shelf open source software for causing events and activities.
That's interesting concept.
Models are fun, but if you can code it and not use a model, it's even better.
Yeah. Well, you can combine the two and get superpowers for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess, we've kind of talked about many things here, but like, what are your, I guess, like practical advice now? Because like Pandora's box has been opened, and even before like Mythos or whatever was announced, like people were like, I saw the announcement, and then people, immediately like, well, we were able to do things with Opus 4.6 and GPT 5.4 well before this. Like, this is nothing new. What is just the general advice now? Like, I guess inventory. Like, how can I go to sleep at night knowing that like I'm not going to wake up and all my stuff be hacked? I don't know. Like,
well, two things. Inventory. It always starts with inventory. Do you have an inventory of all your application, all your API endpoints? Do you know where they are, how they run, what they connect to, and what data they use? And on top of that, what data they use that's the business decision. The data itself is the business. So yeah, the data and the logic of the applications. What is it? Where is it? How are it at? If you can't answer that question, you're not ready to go anywhere. You need to make sure you have things properly inventoried. And that includes, I had a great conversation with Cote about this morning. Also, is what does that inventory mean? I have an app. Cool. Let me run a SIFT scan on it and get an SBOM. That's great. So I got an SBOM of your app. Okay, well, that app might have a container it runs in. So I have the SBOM, the container. And he goes, oh, I see that had a Ruby app in there. So I grab the Ruby app, then dependencies. And that's what it got for me. Well, that Ruby app had a web app because it's a web app. So then it had React and probably a handful of other JavaScript applications on that side of it. The scan didn't happen to recognize that because it's looking for the lock file for the language that was used, not the web interface. So how deep do you go in that inventory? Because React has had vulnerabilities that have caused problems. So first, that inventory, saying you have an inventory is a very complex conversation. One of the things, actually, Darin, we could probably talk a little bit about is what are we doing on the app side of inventory within Tanzu platform? Because one thing we've done is we've already had in the past, the SBOMs for our build packs, we had the SBOM for our products. What we're adding in the new releases, we're actually adding the SBOM for the stacks, the actual runtime stack that goes with it. And that's an interesting conversation because there's multiple stacks and how you approach that. And then we have the SBOM for an application, which is what our customer brought. Now, if you take those pieces, I can take an SBOM for an application. I can say, oh, these per all the stack, these per all the build pack, these per our Spring, because we have the Spring stuff. Here's the stuff that's left up to you, and all those things that we in Tanzu have, those pieces, we can help you with answers to them, and everything that's outside of ours. It's one of the biggest questions we have from customers is we've got thousands of apps running. How do I fix it? Who's responsible for what part and where? Especially in a containerized or even better Cloud Foundry environment where you have a platform that provides pieces. If you're using a regular Kubernetes, you might have 40 different pipelines or pulling things from different places. How do you maintain that supply chain? That's a whole other conversation. We can get into that side, but just the view of us being able to help a customer say, okay, here's your app. We split it apart and said the stack, the build pack, the OS of the platform, and possibly even the Spring stuff on the side for doing Spring. We've got answers for all of that for you. Here's how you maintain and upgrade that. Here's our procedures. It's all either on the back end automated or on the front end, what you have to do. Everything above that is what you have to take care of. Now you have a plan of what to go work on. That's not like, I've gotten spreadsheets from customers who are like, it's 1,000 lines for one application. And it turns out in the end, it's like only 40 that they need to worry about. So just being able to help someone start with that inventory. If you're on a Tanzu platform, you got an inventory of everything. I can easily tell you all your apps, what they're connected to, what they use for data, where they're actually located, what vSphere clusters are on, what Amazon clusters, wherever you're running it. So the inventory is done. We have that. We have APIs for it. We've got some great tooling. But then you go in that depth of the application inventory now. We're helping you break that apart, and there's more coming. This is just we're just trying to help customers with this stuff, and the release we're doing right now is really taking the app story, a really interesting side of how do we help you break that down into what really is your responsibility, your vendor responsibility, and how do you approach doing those patches, because that's the next step is we've got to upgrade.
Right.
And we need to surface it when it's available too. I think that's the other big thing is like there's a lot of times where I think when patches and things like that become available, certain members of the team may know, but not everybody's aware of it. And I think one of the really cool things as part of this release is like we announced some new things as far as new application views that actually not only give you, an idea as to, hey, are there vulnerabilities in the Git repository for this particular application? Going back to your source code points and things like that. Are there vulnerabilities there? But then, and I think to the latter portion, then do I have vulnerabilities within the application, the OS stack in the runtime environment where it's actually running? And being able to surface that is important to the developer because obviously it allows them to take action without having to wait on the platform engineer, and vice versa. If there is a critical event, a critical CVE, say a log4j, well, now you're even better prepared than you were because as a platform engineer, you have the ability to force a restage of that application across your estate, which makes it a whole lot more, gives you that peace of mind of knowing, hey, if there is a new significant vulnerability available where I can be very easily and quickly exposed, now I can patch that before that something like that could ever occur. And I have awareness of it.
And that's I think one of the interesting things that came from a customer. A customer is like, hey, we have a large estate. We have a lot of environment, a lot of foundations, a lot of applications running on them. We'd like to be able to help the development teams, but sometimes the business, this is not like a platform engineer. This is like the business comes and says, we don't care, because you can't have a platform engineer saying, I'm going to force a change that could cause a service to go down. That's
Right.
beyond what they want to have responsibility for. But if the business decides, there's a log4j or something that's so critical that we know is impacting hundreds of applications, we're just going to force an upgrade. We want the business to do, have the ability to have an option to say, hey, we're going to force an upgrade. It might cause something to break. It might not. But in the end, we're deciding as a business that if it breaks it, that just means developers are going to go fix it, which they were going to do anyway. But at least it's not exploitable. And they have a button now. They can say,
Right.
They can go to the platform engineer and say, hey, every one of the 1,000 apps in this foundation, force a restage for every single one of them. And that way it'll force it, it'll get the new build pack, it'll rebuild all the dependencies that come with it. It'll actually update that application, which can, not always, but it can break things depending on how you built the application. And this actually is one of the other conversations I've started having with customers is how are they preparing for this new world?
Right.
It's one thing to say you're a small company. If you only got like 1 or 2 Kubernetes clusters, you can wipe them and rebuild them all the time. That's easy. But when you have, 10,000 applications, and half of those are using, say a little memory cache, say using, Gemfire, and they're like, oh, we've got like maybe a petabyte, 2 petabytes of RAM, and we've got 4 of those clusters, and then we've got a data lake with exabytes worth of data.
Mm-hmm.
How do you upgrade that? And that's, we can provide tools to help with that, and that's one thing I'm super excited about is the evolution that Tanzu is doing to make upgrades easier, because these are complex platforms and
Right.
complex applications that run on them. So it's really exciting. I'm not sure if you had Kathy on in a while or any of the people working on the upgrade planning and those sort of things. That to me is one of the most exciting things we're doing. But how do we help our customers go from a place, Nick, you've worked around, large enterprises and banking.
Mhm.
Darin, you've been around this. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to do our change window. It's Saturday at 2 a.m.
Right.
That doesn't work.
Mhm.
What happens at Tuesday at 2 p.m. when that thing comes out and you have to hit the panic button?
Yeah.
You can't
So
wait.
yeah, we in Tanzu, we can produce, if you need an update within a day, 24, 48 hours, we've proven in the past. When Log4j came out, we had a command line mitigation for the environment variable within hours. It's like, here's how you mitigate it. And then we had a patch within a day. We actually had the full on patch. And then there's another patch that came out. So we did another patch and another. So we can produce it. The problem we have is customers, can they receive it? Can they architect their environment and have the proper budget for the apps and teams are coming on? So if you have a critical application and the data is bound in such a way that it can't reset or transfer or have multi-clusters or Global, how have you architected the application? And this goes back to chaos engineering, which I would love to have a Tanzu platform module for chaos engineering. You just fire it off into your foundation. It just knocks services offline, and if you have an application that's designed to say, oh, the database is down, switch over to this database, it's architected that way, then you can upgrade things. And that's where I want to work over the next years, is helping customers re-architect the way they approach things, so that this new world of not just, we've always continuously received updates. That's one of the reasons people chose Tanzu, is the ability to easily have a pipeline that just grabs the latest stem cell and repaves your environment, and it just does it. But that all depends on, is the app ready? If you have people who have like single instance apps or databases that are statically bound, or persistent storage, or all of those X factor applications we've talked about in the past, how do we get past that? How do we help our customers architect an environment where they can have an update and apply it at scale? We're talking enterprise scale, thousands of nodes and hundreds of thousands of applications. How do we deploy that in a day and then do it again tomorrow without having any impact? We need to get to a point where that original pivotal dream of continuous upgrades always happening all the time is a reality. And I think AI is going to allow us, one, it's going to force us to.
Right. Yeah.
Two, it's going to allow us to better do that by allowing the tooling around our applications to better have that application environment.
Yeah, I was kind of just thinking that. I was like, we've had the groundwork, and I've had customers do things like, the whole like, repay the foundation every other day type of thing. We had all that found groundwork for a long time in these foundations, but now it's just like, wow, we really need to, like, everybody's got to get on board, because I think the software delivery velocity, the velocity of software delivery has changed. Therefore, the good and the bad. So we have to eventually start changing our reaction times as well, and our processes. So I think
the other side of it,
a good place to call out having something like Tanzu platform can really help you do that. But go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt either. I think the other side of it too is, like, to your point, like, the industry and that the entire ecosystem is moving so quickly now. It's such a rapid clip, because everything now is AI driven. Like, and the more and more we look at it, every new application has some intelligence that is built into it, built into the logic of it, because businesses see, hey, we need to do this in order to move faster. And here's the other flip side of it, and the side of it that we probably don't talk about as much, but there's also a dark side to AI, right? Like, there's AI assisted hackers that are out there exploiting and looking for new ways to find exploits within software. And so that idea of continuous security, continuous patching, and making it easier to do so from a platform perspective is obviously something that we focus on all the time as VMware Tanzu. But, like, more than that, like, I think the flip side of that is that there's a people side of this. There's a mindset aspect of this that has to shift with it, because if we're not willing to think about security as continuous, we're not willing to think about patching as continuous. We see it as something, hey, this is a one-time event. It's Patch Tuesday, in the old Microsoft way of things. Like, we see it that way, and we go, oh, well, that'll wait till Tuesday. And David, you brought that up earlier. Like, in some of these cases, you don't have the luxury of waiting that long. Like, are you willing to put, millions upon millions, billions in some cases of dollars at risk, because of the fact that, there is an exploit here that could be, impacting you today.
And then the hard part on top of that is there's also the impact of, like, if in the banking industry, you can't be offline for 48 hours, so how do you, it's a very, I don't envy anyone who has to make the decisions on that. It is a very difficult and hard decision. But I think that there's some interesting changes over the coming years that's going to change how we approach that. So hopefully there's some enterprises who are willing to adopt changes.
Well, yeah, I think it's going to be, I wonder if the industry is obviously changing, across many avenues, but I don't think there's going to be no days of just like, oh yeah, we know there's a fix for that CVE, but we're just not going to patch. And this is not just, like Tanzu or whatever. Like, this is just like the entire field, right? Like, even like, go tell your friends to, like, apply that iPhone patch that they keep getting pestered to. You're like, the those days are gone, I guess, and especially too from patches from official vendors, right? Now, I've definitely gotten concerned about some of the projects working on. I'm like, I should probably make some more ephemeral VMs, or I've been working on a lot of side projects trying to get agents in Cloud Foundry, because why not, to have that ephemeral agent spin up and down. So like I'm not really too concerned about if that thing got compromised type of thing. So it's into wild times for sure happening, and I guess everybody we're all gonna work together, I guess, as well too, because it could be. I'm trying my best to keep calm and not read my Twitter feed every day and wonder what could happen next. But definitely interesting times for sure.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't panic.
Okay.
I think people are overall pretty well established that this can be bad.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't necessarily the end of the world. We've all had Amazon go down on us. In the end, as long as you didn't delete everything, we're fine.
I couldn't order all my packages, right? Yeah.
Yeah, go hang out in your backyard and watch the birds for a little while. But
Yeah.
no, it is change is constant. And I think we're starting to see Moore's law impacting the idea that this security story is ever evolving as well, and it is going faster and shorter iterations, and a number of vulnerabilities found. And we all know that the way we've done things in the past isn't working. And not we being Tanzu, I'm talking the industry as a whole. That the idea that, I was talking to one power company up in the Northeast at one point. They had so many Windows servers, it took them longer than a month to upgrade them all. So they could never in a month. They had a policy by regulation, because they're a power company, to upgrade everything in a month. But just the size of what they had, it was impossible. They would never finish an upgrade. So they're getting halfway through the next month when they're starting the upgrades again for the first. It's like there's more work than we have to handle. There's more going on. It's only going to get more. It's only going to get bigger, and it's going to have bigger sprawl. So attackers only need to be right once. We have a bigger strategy and story to talk about in the defensive side, but we have the right idea behind us. We have the integrity of saying, hey, our goal is to make this better. There's so many things going bad, but then you run into teams like I talked earlier about. The pride I have in just the Tanzu engineering team is like amazing. The mindset and the skill and the patience and the ability for them to just step up and do stuff. Mm-hmm. There are engineering teams like this all over the world. I'm very privileged to work with the Tanzu team. I think that I in my entire career, I've never had the privilege of having people who make it this much fun. So I love the attitude. I love the mindset. But I see it in all of our customers. There are people who, you will never have a developer who wants to write bad code. They want to write good code. They want to be proud of their work. They want to have minimal vulnerabilities, but they don't want to spend their life triaging vulnerabilities. So,
we lost you. We're still there.
We can still hear you.
We can still hear you and see you.
Yep.
Maybe you got a meeting a reminder or something. I don't know.
We did discover earlier that if you change tabs, you will lock up.
Yes. That was a great story there.
Oh, that's annoying.
Are you back? Can you hear us? Test 1, 2, 3. Oh, we got the spinning. Uh-oh. Well, Darin, I don't know. How do you feel about that? I feel like we covered a good story. We got our security champion on here. I feel a little less nervous. I agree.
I agree.
Yeah. Kuhn Labs is powered by Tanzu platform, so I'm not too concerned about that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it's interesting times, right? I mean, we are seeing the entire industry as a whole move at a pace that is faster than ever. David talked about it, Moore's law. Every time we talk about it, it's getting cut in half again. But no, I mean, I think there's some really exciting, innovation that continues to come out of it. Obviously, we're seeing more and more AI-enabled operations, AI-enabled development, AI-enabled teammates, or AI-assisted teammates that are out there now to help us, in the form of agents and otherwise. Oh, he might be back.
The joy of corporate thinking of things happening all the time. The VPN decided to change concentrator, so I am now routed through somewhere else, and naturally everything in the middle was disrupted.
Yes. The bits and the plumbing has been
Can you hear me?
reconnected. Yes, we can hear you just fine. Can you hear us? Unsure.
Not sure.
Well, we're still working on that. But I guess Darin, I guess, while we DMZ give us a thumbs up. Can you hear us, DMZ? I don't know. But we I guess we'll preface this a little bit. I think he's lagging. I think you're lagging a lot.
Can you hear me?
We can hear
you. Yeah, I got right to a new VPN concentrator. So sorry. Security got in the way.
All right. Well, yeah, we're just I think we're gonna wrap it up now. We appreciate you coming on. And it got me a little less concerned. Although I think we're gonna have you on more frequently. We're gonna have to. I want to get V back on as well. Mm-hmm. We can maybe deep dive into some of the security related security improvements, security ecosystem of Tanzu platform 10.4.
Yep.
And then I guess we kind of Darin hinted at it, like we're gonna be like Tanzu platform 10.4 GA'd yesterday. We announced it a week or two ago. I'm not quite sure.
About a week ago. Yep.
Yeah. And we're gonna be having a kind of a super series or mini series or docu series. What a lot of Tanzu platform 10.4 coverage is inbound. We might even have multiple sessions a week. So just keep your radar open for that. We're gonna try to get in all the experts in the different categories. It's a lot to unpack, so it's going to take us many episodes. So if you like what you're seeing here, you should like and subscribe to be notified of all the sessions. And I'll try to publish the episodes as soon as I can. But it's going to be the schedule will be fluid as we work around schedules, and just be on the lookout for episodes popping up. And obviously, if you can't watch them live, you can catch them on our YouTube stream. And I am going to get the podcast transistor thing updated too, so you can get caught up on all the audio episodes as well. But
just click the notification bell, and when you click the notification bell, you'll just always know.
Yes, and then you subscribe, and then like and write comments that are great.
Friends,
only good comments. Yeah. That type of thing. But yeah, any closing thoughts, Darin? Anything else?
No, I'm excited. This is a great episode, and I don't know if David can hear us or not, but it's super great to have David on. I have the privilege of getting to see David almost every day, and so we have lots of really good conversations around security as well as a host of other topics. And so David is a wealth of knowledge and somebody that I'm learning new things from every single day. And so great to have him on. Great to be back, Nick. It's been a minute since I've been on too. So thanks for having us today.
Yeah. David, can you hear us, and do you have any closing thoughts? I think we're gonna take that as a no. Lag on the network. But I guess without further ado, we'll kind of sign off here, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
We'll do our 3, 2, 1. CF bye.
CF bye.